Albania's private sector has played a pivotal role in the country's transition to an upper middle income status. And the country is undertaking reforms to stimulate growth, job opportunities, and advance its EU integration agenda. Now, part of this is a focus on attracting foreign investment, which in the context of the EU Green Deal must aim for a circular economy, halting climate change, reversing biodiversity loss, and cutting pollution and emissions. As you can see from the graphics, there are 6,700 foreign companies in Albania, employing 20% of the workforce. Now, 60% of these come from EU member states, 10% from the Western Balkan region, and 30% from further afield. Now, these account for 3.7% of active companies and are mainly active in production, trade, services, and the processing of raw materials. Now, taking place on the 31st of May and the 1st of June is the Business 2030 conference, organised by the UNDP and the Embassy of Sweden, who will together bring international and local businesses and experts to discuss sustainable entrepreneurship. Now, I'm joined in the studio today by Swedish Ambassador Elsa Hastad, an advocate for all things sustainable, and by Ino Njela, a program specialist at the United Nations Development Programme in Tirana. Good afternoon, welcome to Inside Albania, and thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, Alice, for having us.
It's a pleasure. Now, Elsa, looking ahead to next week's conference, you have an agenda which is full of interesting speakers and topics, but I think it's fair to say that Swedish business investment in Albania is not particularly high. What are your core objectives? What do you want to achieve after the event next week?
Well, good question. I have like 3 dream outcomes. The first, and actually the most important, is to create a sense of urgency around green production, around environmental thinking when you think about business. So that's sort of the awareness part. The second one is that we have a really good lineup of Swedish expertise, and we are a little bit of a champion also when it comes to sustainable development goals. And we have managed to bring together like IKEA, Lindex, agro-processing, the agriculture business, and we've also managed to invite a fashion designer who is an activist. So that is our contribution of sort of sharing our own expertise. And then the third, alluding to your introduction, is of course it would be wonderful if we could also manage to create some trade relation, because I think that by working side by side through trade, you can also transfer the ideas of green business and green production, because being a Swedish business, this is something that they are forced to do. They need to do that. So that would be my 3 dream outcomes.
I mean, I think it's fair to say Sweden is a leader in many, many areas, not just sustainable business. And I love your enthusiasm for this, Elsa. It's definitely needed. Now, we're talking about green this, sustainable that, impacts on society, etc. But when we talk about sustainability in business, what is it exactly? What are we talking about? For a layperson who's not familiar with these terms, can you spell it out in black and white with some concrete examples?
The question is very relevant. It's maybe we've seen it across our meetings and our discussions we've had with our partners. We've been focusing in 2 main sectors: the agro-processing and the textile industry, which somehow are also representative of Albania's main economic development trends. For us, the sustainability would be down to what we say align with the Agenda 2030, down to 3 Ps: people, planet, prosperity. The sense of sustainability has evolved during, let's say, the last decades from the purely environmental protection into a broader sense of getting people across and prosperity, and also tackling the human development as well as the community where people live. So all these environmental and social aspects of the private sector are the ones that we are trying to, let's say, come across in this conference. Now, you say, how do we explain this to simple language? In the build-up of the conference, we've actually, I think there's going to be a video which is still being produced, asking people, small businesses, medium businesses, large businesses, what is sustainability to you? Because we can understand one another, we speak that language and we believe in it. But what does this mean to the simple sort of like the simple business industry? And we get a lot of like variety of answers. You get like people that say, okay, well, sustainability for me is like, ensuring that my people will be still at work in the future, ensuring that we will still have jobs, ensuring that technology will be meeting, we will be actually having the technological progress that we will be surviving tomorrow. If you look into the bigger businesses, larger, they actually start to have a bit more of articulation. Okay, we need to be more aware about energy efficiency. We need to be more aware about waste management. We need to produce in circular sort of like mode. So you get a diverse sort of, let's say, answer to the question. But for us, the most important thing is Albania comes, the private sector you just introduced is mostly geared towards services. You have tourism, you have agriculture. The percentage that you mentioned of those companies that coming from foreign direct investment is very small. And the percentage of exports that Albania sends out is still relatively small, and with low value added in terms of like products. So that's why we believe it's important to actually inject this thinking, especially in view of Albania's progress towards the EU, that this will be the future.
Okay, now Elsa, again, you are a beacon of sustainability in Albania, from the clothes you wear to what you put on the menu in the embassy and in the residence. Everything is about sustainability, and I love this. But why is it necessary for Albanians to have this concept of sustainability in business as a priority for them?
I think it's about different things. I mean, first, it is about us, consumers. We need to change our behavior. We need to think about what we eat, where it is produced, and how does it affect the climate, the environment. The clothes. We all know that the textile industry is a huge polluter. It's like worse than flying industry. So we need to change, to think about this and change our own behavior. So this is, I mean, the most obvious answer to your question is we need to do this for the planet. It's about surviving. It's about meeting the climate crisis. So we're just forced to do that. But a more Albanian-oriented reply would be that Albania is about to enter the European Union, and the European Union will also force Albania to change. Albania needs to get ready for European Union by thinking about how do you produce whatever you produce, and are you using chemicals or not, or how do you work with your energy supply? And I think that Albania has a lot to offer, because Albania also has renewable energy as a main source. And when I tell Swedish businesses this, if you come to Albania, you would actually do your production with renewable energy. They have no idea. But what is worse is that the Albanian businesses have no idea that this is a unique selling point. So I think that we really need to be aware, and thank you for mentioning the food in the residence. It's such a small thing that we only serve locally produced food, but it's a big thing when it comes on a global level, because we all need to think. So I believe in doing small things also to communicate on a bigger level. But this is the future of Albania, and Albania needs to get ready.
And I do think Albanian society is, maybe it has to do with decades of being sort of closed off, is hungry to consume. It wants to consume everything the West has to offer, but it hasn't yet caught up with this concept that we have to be careful in how we consume, where we consume from, and the sustainable implications of that. So thank you for that answer, Elsa. Now, a slightly tougher question to you. Now, we know that Albanian businesses face problems. We'll discuss that a bit later. Now, we come talking about sustainability. We can argue that Albanian businesses are struggling with staff shortages, unfavourable export conditions, problems with bureaucracy. I mean, the list goes on. Some are struggling to survive. Some may say, why should sustainability be a priority for me? Can it help these businesses solve their other problems, achieve their business goals, or is it something that's going to act as a hindrance?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Albanian business landscape is characterized by small, micro business rather, from 0 to 4 family businesses. So for those, yes, it's a bit difficult to actually think in that direction, because any investment that would go for, like, let's say, energy efficiency or like waste management, it's a burden. Now the purpose here is that there are two lines of thought. First of all, as the ambassador mentioned, even in the advanced countries, it was the consumers that actually led the large companies to think and change their attitudes. They didn't just wake up and say, okay, all of a sudden we will be changing our business models. No, it was the consumers, the advanced thinking of consumers that made them change. So I think the timing has come here in Albania as well. We are 30 years after communism. Albanians have traveled a lot. We have a new generation that's thinking alike, well, like every other European. So I think that pressure will come eventually, and that's what we're trying to showcase. In the conference, we will have not only Albanian traditional businesses, but we also have like new startups, those that have actually grasped and acquired this, that investing in sustainable practices can be beneficial, and can be beneficial in the profitability as well. So that's the challenge, basically aligning profitability with the sustainability, and that's what the message that we need to convey. Some businesses already do these practices without even knowing that they're actually taking care of the environment or taking care of the community. So we want to showcase those aspects. So yes, it's difficult, but I think we're trying to put this together in a way that it will have an impact in also the thinking from the consumers as well as businesses.
And this is something I wanted to say as well. These micro businesses, these artisans, these local producers of unique Albanian products, many of them are actually already being sustainable without even realizing.
Absolutely.
And I don't think all of them are aware, and other businesses that are bigger than them don't understand exactly how big that selling point is, not just in Albania, but outside of Albania. So thank you for your response on that. Now, foreign investment is key to Albania's continued development, and I would say it's also very crucial when it comes to stemming youth migration. But it's no secret, as we mentioned earlier, that there are a number of challenges. Now, in April, 5 local chambers of commerce, including those representing American, German, French, and Italian business interests, called on the government to improve the local business environment. To encourage foreign investment, they called for a strategy including anti-corruption measures, a reform of the public procurement system, modernization of the tax system, and a crackdown on the informal economy. They also asked for the establishment of a National Economic Council to foster cooperation between public and private sectors. I'm joined online today by Gentiana Palaveshi, Compliance Director at Morgan Stanley in the UK. Good afternoon, Gentiana. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Alice. Thank you for having me in the discussion today.
Now, I want to dive into the first question. What are the main challenges facing local and, secondly, international businesses in Albania?
Sure. I want to start the discussion by saying that I'm very happy seeing that Albania has gone this far in regards to the foreign investment in the country. And they're now hosting the ESG or Sustainability Investment Conference with the support of the Embassy of Sweden and the UN Department. Thank you so much for that. I believe that over the last years, a lot has changed on the right direction in case to attract new business, be this domestic or foreign investments. Albania has made a remarkable progress in becoming a functional open market economy. However, I want to mention a couple of things that new businesses need to take into consideration when approaching the Albanian market. These will be obstacles or challenges that they might be facing. We're starting with the unfair competition and the monopolies. These are rated as the most concerning cases damaging the business climate in Albania. I believe that the monopolistic climate has gone through the licensing process. Albanian law protects copyright, the patents and the trademarks, but the enforcement of this law still remain quite weak. The Albanian government recently, they have introduced a new law of competitiveness, which I think as a campaign in the long and mid-term, we'll see some benefits from it. And then I want to move to the informal economy and the corruption. As we are quite aware that Albania still remains one of the most corrupted countries in Europe, unfortunately, the progress in tackling corruption has been very unsteady and slow. And the government has ratified several convents in case be this from the EU side to join the European Union. However, despite progress, the corruption remains pervasive. Albania has yet to build a solid track in regards to fight the corruption. So in my opinion, these two cases would be the main obstacles that the new businesses might face. As I mentioned, is a lot progress being done in the last years, but still we need to show a better track record, so in case to attract these new businesses to come into our market.
But I think it would be fair to say as well that international events such as the one next week, but also the ongoing involvement and commitment from international organisations and embassies is essential to overcoming this situation. Gentiana, first, your thoughts on this, and then I will ask the guests in the studio.
Yeah, sure. As it was mentioned before in your studio, the UN is introducing the SDGs, so how the small and medium businesses can kind of implement the new SDGs within their operations. But it's not just about having them written on your annual business commitment documentation, but it's very important to actually implement those rules and then to follow them on the way. And it's very important I believe in Albania, not just to have things written and on paper for bureaucratic reasons, but it's very important to actually implement those operations within the business and then on their operations outside the businesses. So each individual that works for that certain companies, be this small, medium or large companies, they need to be very well aware of what it is to protect the environment, how we can be more sustainable on our daily life, even just by giving up driving, by instead taking public transport to work, which is very basic, and we know what a major issue it is currently in Albania.
Gentiana, if you stay with me online, I want to ask the two guests here. So that was a very stark explanation of the challenges that we know are present here. You are doing work to encourage foreign investment. How do you see your role in overcoming these issues when we talk about corruption and hurdles with bureaucracy, etc.?
Yes, not so much on corruption, but on another thing that you also started out with, Alice. I think it's sort of a sweet spot of meeting here that could be explored more. And I will take the example of tourism, because you have a large group of tourists, my own country, Europe, who want to travel sustainable, environmentally friendly. And then you have Albanian business. But the Albanian business, we've done research on this, which was very interesting. They don't really have the self-confidence to say that they are sustainable. Just a simple example, washing the towels every day. So the tourists come and they say, we want to have clean towels, and then they think that they need to wash them every day, instead of actually saying, no, we are a sustainable hotel, a family hostel. You need to use it for 2 or 3 days. And this came out in a research made by the Swedish university, that Albanian, some things are easy, like local production, local food, local employment, but this part of being self-confident is lacking. So I think there's an improvement that could be made on behalf of the Albanian business. Another thing is that, actually, this was very interesting. We had another study made targeting family business in textile industry, and there we noticed that language was a bigger problem than we thought from the beginning, because everyone would sort of speak English and Italian, but the family structure, first it was a problem because of the elder in the family, they did not speak languages, and they had an inability to change. So if you have a young generation wanting to do things differently, being, I don't know, sustainable, green, targeting new markets, then you have a structure of old members of the family sort of hampering that. So that's another challenge, and we were sort of surprised by this when we did this study.
Thank you, Elsa. You know, what role do you think that the foreign organizations can have in solving these problems?
I think, first of all, Albania has come a long way, so as we've all recognized, but obviously there are issues, there are problems. But we'll have to say that doing business in Albania, it's much easier than it used to be like 20 years ago. Registering a business and everything. So in that, having said that, I think our efforts, it's not about like having a paper and saying I like the SDGs and we commit to the SDGs. It's about what can we actually do about it. And that's where we are. We have our excellent partnership with the Swedish or our Swedish friends, that we have agreed to co-work with businesses, because we need to come to an understanding what are the actual challenges and what can we do in addressing them. As far as the sustainability is concerned, it could be decent work, it could be like women's right at work, it could be like leave, it could be environment, it could be health and safety. There are so many things that can make a difference, and those are the ones that we can actually change and we can work. Obviously, those things do not change overnight, but by sitting with them, spending time in identifying those challenges, and then ensuring that actions are taken to improve them, it's a good way to go.
I think, just before I come to you, Elsa, I think it's also a matter of exposure. As you said, things have changed, but you can say to the business sector and the government, this has to change, this has to change, this. But until they actually do it through working with businesses that are coming from abroad with a different culture, a different way of doing things, I think that is one of the ways that things will change. And it doesn't happen overnight. Elsa?
No, I just want to add that what can we do? We can do a lot of support sort of around the business, and we are doing it, but I think this is a good way to work. One is to support labor union, because they ensure good and decent job. Another thing is to work with women's organization to ensure that you have women's right covered, or to support media so that they can really investigate if you have a bad practice in a business. A lot of things that you wouldn't primarily think about are also extremely important to create this favorable environment for the business.
Thank you, Elsa. Gentiana, going to you online just for the last question. In a few words, circling back to, excuse the pun, circular economy, circling back to sustainability again, how do you think that this can help businesses in Albania with the problems they face, but also foreign businesses coming to Albania?
Sure. So considering the geographic location of Albania, I would say that we are in a very good position in case to attract the foreign investors to come in. As you know yourself, I'm quite involved on the renewable energy. And as Elsa mentioned in the studio, so basically it will be a great involvement for the businesses, the current businesses in Albania and the new ones that might be coming in the future years to actually implement the renewable energy. If you are supplied by renewable energy, first of all, it's just going to be way cheaper for your operations to run. And secondly, you're also saving the world and saving the planet. And then to move forward about all the SDGs that we did mention before. So this will be all part of the spectrum that will help especially the small and medium companies to move forward and to be more sustainable, and then to reflect their sustainability on their operations.
Gentiana, thank you very much, and thank you to my guests in the studio. Now, to find out more about the Business 2030 conference, you can visit the website business2030.al. There you can register to attend the event, but the event will also be live streamed via the UNDP Facebook page, I believe. So if you can't make it to the conference in person, you can catch up with everything that happens online. Thank you to you both.